You've been searching for the best way to generate passive income in your life and heard that real estate is a great way to do it. But you're tired of all the so-called gurus who are all talk and no substance. Get ready to celebrate because Kevin Bupp has spent 14 years successfully making it happen. This is the Real Estate Investing for Cashflow podcast. Now, here's Kevin Bupp.
Hey guys, Kevin Bupp here with episode number 102 of the Real Estate Investing for Cashflow podcast. Our mission is to help you build and maintain massive amounts of cash flow through income-producing real estate investments. And our guest for this week's show is commercial real estate investment expert Al Klairmont. And Al has more than 38 years of industry experience and has been incredibly successful in his given niche. And in today's show, Al shares with us the core philosophies and investment strategies which has played a major role in getting him to where he is today in his business. And as of the day of this recording, Al and his group currently own 100 office, retail, and industrial properties in the Chicago area, which equates to more than 10 million square feet of leasable space. And if that doesn't impress you, then how about if I told you that out of all 100 properties, he only has very minimal leverage or debt and owns most of it free and clear with no outside equity partners, right? Pretty impressive. Well, I'm positive you're going to learn a ton from this show. Al's been in the business a long time, and he's got a long, successful track record. So I know you guys are going to love the show. You're going to love Al. And in the show with Al, you're going to learn the following. You're going to learn how he got his start in the real estate business and the valuable lessons that he learned by managing his father's small commercial rental portfolio. You're going to learn why he attributes a large piece of his success to the brilliant staff he has surrounded himself with at Imperial Realty Company. You're going to learn how Al learned to identify the changing real estate cycles, which has allowed him the ability to prosper in both up and down times. You're going to learn a philosophy which he adopted from his father, in which they implement an accelerated paydown plan on all properties they acquire, which has proven a successful model through the various recessions that we've had over the years. You'll learn why his group caters towards distressed value-add commercial properties versus stabilized properties. You're going to learn the numerous reasons he feels that the office building sector is by far the most difficult to own and operate efficiently, and is the exact reason why he and his team like distressed value-add office deals. You'll learn why he feels that you should never buy based on the current performance of a given property, but more so how the property will perform in the future. You'll learn why he feels very strongly that if you want something done correctly, then you need to supervise the person or persons responsible for completing the task or project. You'll learn the reasons he suggests that all real estate professionals need to become masters at the art of sales and negotiations, and much, much more. And if this is the first time you're tuning into the show, I want to welcome you into our awesome family that we have here at the Real Estate Investing for Cashflow podcast. Or if you're one of the many thousands of listeners that tune in each and every week, I want to welcome you back and just let all of you know, both new and old, that I'm so glad and I'm very grateful that you're here with me, that you're taking the time to listen to my show, okay? I wouldn't be here if it wasn't for you, so thank you very much. And like I do every week, I like to give a shout out to a few of our listeners who have taken the time to go over to iTunes and leave a review for us. And so today we have, I believe, 3 of them. Yep, we've got 3. And so the first one is from screen name Rich Copage. And Rich, I hope I pronounced your last name correctly. So that's Rich Copage. And he says, great and informative show that provides high quality content, very practical and real world information. Okay. The second one we have here is from Jonathan Marks. And Jonathan says, Kevin is incredible and relatable. His guests are fantastic and high level, and I enjoy listening to the many investment strategies that everyone brings to the podcast. This podcast is great for intermediate and advanced investors, and it is rich, interesting, and informative. Kevin, keep up the great work. And then the third one here is from C-Dang1. Again, these screen names crack me up sometimes. So that's C-Dang1. And they say, this real estate investing podcast stands apart from much of the competition due to the superb quality of the guests. Most of Kevin's guests have weathered several cycles of boom and bust markets. One of my pet peeves of some of today's real estate investing podcasts is that successful investors from high cash flow markets are highlighted who only began buying properties after the 2008-2009 mortgage meltdown. Kevin presents the audience with a wide array of fairly sophisticated guests from multiple specialties. within the real estate investing market. I really like the way Kevin outlines in the beginning what topics and subjects the guests will be speaking about. The presenters tend to be very well spoken, detailed, and highly specialized. Well, all three of you, thank you so much for taking the time to leave those reviews. It makes my day, it makes my week. When I get a chance to read these, it seriously does. So if you're one of those people that are listening in right now to this show, and you've been listening for a while and you feel like this show adds value to you and your business, but you haven't yet gone over to iTunes to leave a review for me, then I encourage you to do so. I won't be mad at you if you don't, but I encourage it, okay? It really helps us attract high-quality guests to the show. It helps us with our rankings, and again, it makes my day. So that's the selfish part of it. It really makes my day. It lets us know that we're making a difference here. So let's move on here. A couple laundry list items that I'd like to go through with you before we get onto the show with Al Klairmont. One is just about the free 30-minute phone consultation that I've been offering for a long time now. This is a way for you and I to get on the phone together. No ulterior motives here. Just a way for you and I to spend 30 minutes on the phone together. We can talk about anything your heart desires about real estate investing. I've talked to hundreds of our listeners now over the past year or so that I've been doing this. And if you'd like to speak with me, again, whatever it might pertain to, as long as it's real estate, we can get on the phone together. And how you'd schedule that call with me is by going to my website, kevinbupp.com. Scroll down to the bottom right-hand corner of the website. There's a button that says Schedule a Call with Kevin. Go ahead and click on that link. Be sure to put some information in there about what you'd like to chat about during our time together, and then we'll hook up on the phone. And I can tell you that I'm pretty booked up with that 30-minute phone call. I think it's booked out about 2.5 months out. And so if it's a pressing issue, now I want you to listen very closely here. If it's a pressing issue, maybe it's a deal you're working on that you're in due diligence on, or it's something very, very important and it's time sensitive, and you need to reach out to me, you want to pick my brain on something, then go ahead and shoot me a personal email, kevin@kevinbupp.com, and we'll definitely get on the phone together before you can schedule that Friday call, okay? I take these calls on Fridays, the one I'm talking to you about, and like I said, I'm booked like 2.5 months out. But if it's a pressing issue, just reach out to me, and I'll be sure to make some time for you, okay? And a few more things I want to go through here. In fact, I'm actually supposed to be, as I'm recording this show, I'm supposed to be in Jamaica right now, which is the craziest thing. I should be sitting on a hammock with a cocktail in my hand or a beer in my hand, but I'm actually sitting in my studio because this darn Zika virus. If you guys aren't familiar with it, turn on the TV because it's all over the news, and it's a big deal. In fact, the CDC just added Jamaica a few days ago before we were supposed to leave for our vacation to the list of countries that you should not travel to if you are either pregnant or planning to be pregnant in the very near future. And my wife and I are trying for our second child, and so we do not want to take the risk of going to this country and one of us getting bit by an infected mosquito and coming down with the Zika virus, because it's been known to cause birth defects in babies. And so not only did my Jamaica trip get canceled, but I also had a trip already paid for and planned on for the Dominican Republic in May. And Dominican Republic's also on the list of places not to travel to. And so basically both of my Caribbean vacations got canceled this year because of this darn virus that's getting transmitted by mosquitoes. But the craziest part is now it's in Florida. And I'm in Clearwater, Florida, and it's actually in the county next to me. I'm in Pinellas County. They just notified us that it's in Hillsborough County. And it's just a little scary. It's crazy, and hopefully they can get it under control and get a vaccine put together for it very quickly and, slow this outbreak down a little bit. But anyway, so that's what's going on with me. But the cool thing about this whole Zika virus, it's not nothing cool, but it's actually allowed us some free time in our schedule, our travel schedule, that we can actually go skiing now. We like to go skiing once a year out west. And we literally just, the day we found out we were canceling our trip, which is just about 3 days ago, I went ahead and booked a flight out to Colorado, and we're going to get to go snowboarding and skiing with some really cool friends, and that should be a lot of fun. So I'm looking forward to that. And a few more things I want to go through here, and then we'll get on with the show with Al. I got to meet some awesome people over the past week. Actually, two individuals that I met through this show. Through the Real Estate Investing for Cashflow podcast, Ryan and Brian. Actually, God, that rhymes, but I didn't meet them at the same time. I met 2 different days, and but they reached out to me. They were in town. I live in the Clearwater, Florida area, which is part of the Tampa Bay market. They were in town. They reached out to me, and I had the opportunity to meet up with them. So both of you guys, it was awesome meeting with you in person. And this goes out to everyone else that's listening. If you're ever in the Tampa Bay area, shoot me a message. Reach out to me. Let me know you're going to be around. If I'm in town and I'm free, I'd love to meet up with you. We can grab a beer. We can grab some lunch, grab a coffee, whatever it might be. But reach out to me. I love to meet you. I love to meet people that are passionate about this business and this industry. And I'd love to meet you. So just a few more things here before we get going. Launch of the Mobile Home Park Investing Podcast. I've been talking about this now for a few months, and it's really happening, guys. I'm serious about this. It's about to come out now. I've actually recorded a few of the episodes. They're just waiting for the website to be finalized so we can get this podcast launched and linked up to iTunes. And it's going to be awesome. I'm so excited about it. Got some incredible content coming out. And this podcast is really to educate those properly in how to invest in mobile home parks, but it's also to help us reach our goal here in helping 25 people successfully purchase their first park this year. Okay, remember I told you guys, if you listened a couple episodes back, one of my big goals for 2016 is to help 25 people achieve their dreams of purchasing their first mobile home park. And so this podcast is going to help you do that. And we've got other tools coming out as well in the Mobile Home Park Academy that are also going to be able to help you achieve that goal of purchasing your first mobile home park. And so just keep tuned in for that. I'll let you know as soon as we get it launched. And I can just promise you that it's happening soon, okay? And one last thing here is I want to know what you guys want to hear from this show, okay? If there's some guests that you'd love to hear me get on the show, then shoot me an email. Let me know who they are. Maybe there's some topics you'd like me to cover. Let me know. This show is all about, really it's all about you. I want to add value to your lives, to your businesses, to ensure that you're as successful as you possibly can be, okay? So if there's something that we're not covering that you'd like us to cover, let me know. Shoot me an email, kevin@kevinbupp.com, and I will be sure to acknowledge that and do my best to make those changes so that we can continue adding additional value to your life, okay? And now let's get on to the part of the show that you guys have been waiting for, which is our interview with Al Klairmont. So here we go.
Ladies and gentlemen, today on the show, we're excited to be joined by real estate investment expert and president of Chicago-based Imperial Realty Company, Al Klairmont. Since 1978, Mr. Klairmont has been involved hands-on in the process of finding, buying, rehabbing, leasing, and managing and maintaining commercial properties. He directs a staff of 30 professionals who are geared to offer tender, loving care to all operations of property ownership. Imperial Realty Company's portfolio consists of over 100 retail, office, and industrial properties containing over 10 million square feet of rentable space. Most of these acquisitions were purchased as distressed properties and have been subsequently guided to success through rehabilitation and repositioning to meet the needs of the respective marketplaces. Imperial's in-house departments include legal, architectural, space planning, brokerage, leasing, management, and maintenance. As proof to his success, Mr. Klairmont was recently inducted into the exclusive Chicago Association of Realtors Hall of Fame. In addition to his role with Imperial, Mr. Klairmont is the founding chairman of the Harold E. Eisenberg Foundation Education Committee and Mentor Program. So without further ado, let's welcome Al Klairmont to the show. Al, how you doing today?
Hey, I'm doing okay, Kevin. Thank you for having me. It's an honor.
Yeah, absolutely. Pleasure to have you on the show. Looking forward to speaking with you and digging into your business a little bit today, Al. And just like we do on all the other shows, what I like to do here in the very beginning, Al, is just kind of hand the mic back to you here for a few minutes. And if you would, maybe tell our listeners a little bit more about yourself, who Al is. Maybe you can fill in some of the gaps in the introduction I gave for you and tell us a little bit more about yourself.
Well, I like to think I'm just a regular guy, Kevin, but I have been very, very fortunate to get my foot into commercial real estate. And I've been very, very fortunate in a couple of ways. First of all, I'm second generation. And I have had the extreme advantage of being able to follow my father, Larry, into commercial real estate. My dad, who's 89 years old, and I still consult with, is a real estate genius, self-taught. And what he did on his own, to me, was just amazing. And my dad, who never worked full-time in the real estate field, on the side, while I was in junior high school, in high school and college, put together 23 commercial properties that he owned and managed on his own without any staff. And as I was graduating college, I could not picture myself as a grown-up. I couldn't picture myself in the working world. One thing I knew is I didn't want to do any more school. And as I was in my final stages at the University of Illinois in Urbana, my dad pulled me aside and said, "Son, why don't we open a real estate office? And let's run things right. We'll hire a part-time secretary. I have no idea what we will have this part-time secretary do, but we'll hire one, and let's go with it." And that was the best offer I had, and I said, let's do it. And a year after I started, in May of 1978, we actually did open an office. But I was very, very fortunate not only to have my dad, but at the time to be the first employee.
Mm-hmm.
While my father worked in another business, I was given the latitude to do everything. My dad took me to the garage my first day, and in the garage there was a big key box, and he said, "Son, I never want to see these keys again." So I was turned loose, and although I had studied the full real estate curriculum at the University of Illinois in Urbana, I knew nothing about real estate. So I, by trial and error, bumbled along every day, and where there was a payphone nearby and a dime in my pocket, I could call my dad when I'd get into trouble, which was about every 10 minutes. I'd be in over my head. And if I could get him on the phone, I could get the right answer. And I learned very quickly to answer to people who would put me on the spot for decisions. Let me think about that, and I'll get back to you tomorrow. Although I had no idea what my answer would be. And, but being the only employee allowed me to be a generalist, in that I was doing everything. I was showing space to prospective tenants. I was meeting with contractors. Before long, I was designing spaces and doing floor plans and kind of architectural work, although I was not an architect. I was negotiating leases with prospective tenants and with their attorneys, and even acting as an attorney, although I wasn't an attorney. I also typed leases with a manual typewriter.
Oh, my gosh.
I wasn't very good at that. And really did everything from A to Z with regards to commercial property ownership. And let me tell you something, Kevin, I loved it. I loved the variety. I loved the action. And, that first day, it became 5 o'clock, and I was just sort of wondering, am I supposed to stop? Because it's 5 o'clock. But I had things to do. So I went on till 6 or 6:30 or, whenever. And then came Saturday. Well, should I do things on Saturday? Should I work? Or, should it be Monday to Friday?
Yeah.
And I was 21 years old. I had nothing else constructive to do. I worked. And ditto on the Sunday. And something, when you love what you're doing, you do it well.
And it's not considered work.
Not at all. When you do it well, you're successful. I'm in my 38th year now, and I feel as fresh as I was day one.
Okay.
And I'm
so,
loving it.
Yeah, well, that's an incredible story because it's not like you didn't necessarily you didn't learn it through the school of hard knocks, right? So you had somewhat of a mentor, your father, but your father learned the business through the school of hard knocks. I mean, he was self-taught, as you mentioned, but he was your mentor and he was your advisor, but you were still, everything was new to you. So, I mean, you were still paving your own way. You were still creating that path. So I think that's pretty cool. That's a great story. And, I mean, look where you guys are today. I mean, from that point, and that was back in 1978, correct?
Yes.
So to that, from back then till today, and I'm sure you guys have sold a lot of assets, but just today alone, your holdings include 100, different properties, including retail, office, and industrial, with over 10 million square feet of rentable space. That's a pretty incredible success story, if I might say so myself, Al.
Well, it is what it is, Kevin, and I still have the values that I had day one. I try to run each building myself and to be as hands-on as I can. Mm-hmm. I still have keys to just about all the buildings and know how to use them. But the big difference is today I have a staff of 100 people. They do things better than I do in their various fields of expertise. Mm-hmm. And okay. my first impulse is to do everything myself, but that's not possible.
No, not enough time in the day. Not enough time in the day. Well, Al, what I'd like to hear from your perspective what that evolution looked like, because you got your start. I mean, you obviously were building on your, what your father had already built, but you guys were opening up a real estate company now. So, what was your game plan when you decided to start this company? And moving forward, what did those first acquisitions look like? I mean, what were you guys looking for? What types of deals? And has that model changed to what it is today?
My dad's first acquisition was the oldest commercial building in our hometown of Highland Park, Illinois. And as the story goes, my parents had left the movie theater in the local downtown and walked by a real estate office. And in the window was a picture of this commercial building that was on the main street of the downtown. And my dad, who had some experience in real estate by virtue of his former business, Imperial Cleaners, which was a chain of dry cleaning stores back in the 40s, the 50s, and the 60s, where my dad had rented many stores, possibly 70 different drop-off stores. So he had some background in choosing and learning good locations. Mm-hmm. Well, this was arguably the prime corner in the downtown. And it had been in the hands of one family since it was built in 1881. And it was a paint store. The family had a paint store. And they were ready to close. They felt that just having a paint store in the prime corner of downtown Highland Park was not the place to be or the business to be in, and they were going to close the store and sell the building. And as a 10-year-old, I was able to watch my father do this. He tore me away from the Saturday morning cartoons that I was watching and said, come downtown with me. I'm going to meet the real estate broker and try to buy this building. And I sat there and I watched him at work, and I was kind of bored out of my mind. I think it took like a whole hour.
That's a lot of cartoon time.
Anyway, if I recall, they were asking $70,000 for the building. Boy, these numbers are small today, aren't they? Yeah. And he was bold enough to offer $60,000. I couldn't imagine how he could do that. And they said it's a deal. My dad worked with a very creative architect, and they did what I felt was just a masterpiece of redevelopment on this site. They added on to the building. There was some attic space, which was actually the site of the first Highland Park High School in the early 1900s. And they dropped the ceiling, put in air conditioning and an elevator, and called it office space, and rented 4 offices. And the dingy old basement that I remember walking through, the 80-year-old basement that smelled of mildew, with the low ceiling. The addition, the building is on a hill, and with the addition, they created a storefront and connected it to the basement of the 80-year-old building, so that dingy basement space became like first floor retail space.
Oh, wow.
And then, of course, there was the first floor of the building. Well, everything rented out, and I used to get to listen to my dad. You know, in those days, our household had one telephone, one telephone line. I think we had 2 telephones in the house, and whenever the phone would ring, you know, there was no privacy. I would hear my dad screen applicants and negotiate deals. And my dad realized that there was a payback of 3.5 years. In 3.5 years, he got his money out of the deal, and thought, you know, this is one great business. And he went on to buy other similar buildings and opportunities, as well as many single-user automotive garage-type buildings, which were easy to manage. Mm-hmm. Now, my dad, back in the 60s, was very, very wise to inflation. He felt that inflation was going to happen, and it really had not. You know, you go back to the 60s or early 70s, and all of the leases that he wrote that were multi-year were tied into inflation. And then, of course, during the 70s, we had the big-time inflation, double-digit inflation. But another thing very, very savvy of my dad was to forecast rhythms in the economy, cycles. Mm-hmm. There's a good economy and a bad economy, and a bad economy, a good economy. And they're certainties. The change is certain. The economy will go from good to bad. My dad was born in 1926, which means he lived through the Great Depression. Mm-hmm. And, you know, what I've noticed is one can never forget that period of time, one who lived through it. And my dad understood that a great Achilles heel in long-term real estate investment can be being over-leveraged. And although back in the day there was such a thing as 100% financing, and most acquisitions, that's what my dad did in the early days, borrowed at 100% from the bank. But the idea was always to pay off the mortgage, so that when the economy sours, we're not left out hanging to dry. Mm-hmm. Today, if we have 100 properties, we have 2 substantial mortgages. How about that? So that philosophy and that strategy has gone through the decades, and we find ourselves in a very, very strong position, able to buy distressed properties with cash, and really with no worries about a foul economy causing us to default on mortgages or lose our properties, as many other developers have had.
Mm-hmm. I just want to clarify real quick, Al, for the listeners there, actually, and for myself. So based on your current portfolio, you only have 2 assets that currently have debt on them? Is that what
that
you
have
just said there?
substantial mortgages.
Okay.
I have little mortgages on 2 other properties.
Okay. Wow. That's quite impressive. Wow. Okay. That's I like that philosophy a lot. I mean, I'm a long-term. Everything we purchase is for the long-term hold, and so we're all about paying our debt down. We don't over leverage on things that we acquire as well. But I wish I could sit here and say that we've got 20 properties right now that are almost free and clear or are free and clear. But I'm not saying that. So, but
Kevin, it sure is tempting to borrow, especially with the rates so low. But long-term, debt is a liability, and it's the number one cause of real estate failures, is being over-leveraged. So if one can check his ego at the door, I say it's an excellent idea to pay down and pay off your mortgages.
So does that mean that all of your projects are self-funded, or do you also bring in outside investors for these deals?
Well, because of our long-term strategy, I find that we're incompatible with most other investors. We have 0 partners in any of our investments.
Wow.
And I think that a partnership should really only be for the reason of need. And if we were to take on an investor, a silent investor, a passive investor, our investor would come to us after the first year and every year thereafter and ask, where's the return on my investment? I want a dividend. I want something back. I put up this money. Well, our thinking is we don't want the money. We want to pay down the debt.
Okay. So you guys do accelerated pay downs on everything that you purchase. I mean, that's your strategy right from day one. Okay.
That's right.
Okay. Well, I like it. I like it. It's obviously worked very well for you, and you guys have done quite well. So it's a very impressive strategy. You're one of the first people I've ever spoken with that has this size portfolio that has that philosophy, and I love it. So kudos to you guys.
It's
Great
worked
job.
out very well.
So let's talk about your current business model there at Imperial. I know you guys you have some retail, you have office and industrial. Talk to me a little bit about what that business model really looks like. I know I mentioned there in the beginning that you primarily purchase distressed assets. Can you give us kind of maybe an example of a recent acquisition that you've made, and what was distressed about it? What was the opportunity that you saw? Maybe even discuss, you don't have to give the exact location, but maybe the market it was in and things of that nature.
Yeah, Kevin, there's all sorts of investments in real estate. And there isn't one that's right or one that's wrong, but there's at least a couple of dozen different kinds of investments. Industrial, commercial, mobile homes, residential, near, far, big, small.
Sure.
Partnerships, foreclosures, there's all sorts. Let me tell you which is our favorite kind of investment, and that is the value-added investment. Now, that's a property that is often distressed. The building is worth less than the mortgage, the building has significant vacancy, or the building is developed a functional obsolescence, and it really needs a firm hand to be guided to success. So this may be a property which can be purchased for 20 cents on the dollar, or 20% of reproduction cost new plus land, or 30 cents. Kevin, we've bought buildings that we felt were maybe a penny on the dollar, but deeply distressed. And we favor this kind of investment because, number one, how do you go wrong paying so low for a piece of property? How can it get any lower? And the upside is huge. And we've developed an expertise in guiding these various properties, office and retail and industrial, from distress to success. We make lemonade out of lemons, and have a passion in doing so.
Mm-hmm.
And I don't think, Kevin, that it's very glamorous work. It's more, day to day, problem to problem, and solution after solution. And by doing things right, by paying attention, by being diligent, these properties turn around. Now, during most of my career, we were able to turn around properties in about a year. Today, in the teeth of the Great Recession and just after the Great Recession, I now figure 5 years to turn around these properties.
Give us an idea of what that typical, I know, well, I shouldn't use the word typical, that's the wrong word to use because nothing is typical when it comes to real estate, especially when you're talking a distressed asset play. But maybe give us an example of a recent, I know your company had just acquired 8 new deals in 2000 at the end of 2015, and maybe take one of those out of that 8 package portfolio and give us a few of the details on it. Maybe there was an occupancy issue, maybe there were some operational challenges, physical obsolescence. What was the opportunity that you saw with one of those particular deals?
What I observe in the marketplace today, and I'm focused on my Chicago area. We live in Chicago, work in Chicago, our office is in Chicago, and our sweet spot are properties within, say, a 20-minute driving radius of our office, which means we know the market like the back of our hands.
Mm-hmm.
And of all the different investments that there are, it seems to me the most difficult to manage and manage efficiently are the office buildings. Because the office building sector usually requires the owner of the property to go into each space each day. Offices within our office buildings, we're cleaning 5 days a week. We're maintaining temperatures throughout the week. And heaven forbid if it's not 72 degrees, if it's 67 degrees, or for that matter, 79 degrees. Our tenants call, and scream bloody murder. In addition to the cleaning and the heating and cooling, we're providing a number of other services. Elevator, window washing. We're providing supplies in the restrooms. And let me tell you, there's pandemonium when you run out of paper hand towels in a bathroom. We're maintaining a parking lot and landscaping and a roof. And the other sectors, the owner is not at all invasive. And because it's so difficult and intensive to run office buildings, there are fewer buyers. An apartment building goes on the market, there may be 100 bidders, because everybody's an expert at owning residential property. Everybody's lived somewhere and knows all about it. An office building, which is going to be a total hassle to own, well, there may be 3 bidders. So I feel you get a much better buy with the multi-tenanted office product. And then when you get such a product in distress, where a lender may say, look, I'm not going to lend you a penny based upon the current occupancy, there's even less bidders. So there's great opportunity to get great value in an acquisition for that product. And we've been picking up a lot of distressed office buildings. And as I look around the portfolio and I walk from successful office venture to another successful office venture, they're all successful, I think back to when we purchased it and it was distressed. So it's a cycle of progression, and it always works out for us.
Okay. And you guys you're vertically staffed. I mean, you handle all your own leasing, your own management, your own legal. Everything is in-house. Is that correct?
There's great economies in having everything in-house, and that all goes back to my first day when I did everything.
Mm-hmm. You had that big, heavy key belt weighing your hip down.
I see no need to change and to lose efficiency by farming out these various fields of expertise required in property management. And we're able to turn on a dime. Somebody looks at a space on Tuesday and they want to move in on Thursday. My God, we can write a lease and have the space ready. It gives us a great competitive advantage in the marketplace.
Mm-hmm. Do you see any major changes happening now or in the foreseeable future with technology, and also the changes with lots of major corporations are really going towards minimizing their office space or their office footprint and going more with like a telecommuting type staff to where people are allowed to work from homes, or a satellite type office, things of that nature? Have you seen that have any kind of impact, or do you foresee that having any kind of impact on the traditional type of office building?
Well, I do, and change is a constant, and change is a very good thing. Imagine how boring things would be if the real estate market today were just like it was 30 years ago in 1986. Change is healthy, it eliminates decay, and brings in new modern ideas. Now, there's a lot of investors that are stressed. The internet is going to take over retail, and everybody's moving to the city center. The suburbs are going to dry up, and this and that. But again, that all falls into the idea of change. And of course, tastes and preferences are going to be changing. And the red out alert for me is to realize that what they tell you in school about real estate, the three most important things, location, location, and location, it's true. And as real estate demand changes, I think that excellent AAA locations are emphasized, and the boonies are really headed for hard times.
So for those investors that are out there today chasing those yields and that they can't buy anymore and get the returns they're looking for in the primary market, so now they're going to secondary, tertiary markets, or I guess whatever's after that. Is it frontier markets? Is that the fourth outlying market? Is that what it's called, the frontier market? So those guys,
call it what you will, it's a mistake.
Yeah, it's the Wild West. That's what I'll call it. Yeah, so that's interesting, and I agree with you. I see that even in our space. We focus on purchasing manufactured housing communities, and which is its own little unique niche in itself. So we provide affordable housing in a asset class that is actually ever diminishing. It's going away. There's no more being built in the U.S. They're only being demolished for either getting shut down for health reasons or being developed into higher and better uses. But even then, we're very particular about the markets that we buy, and it really is location, location, location. And I see guys make the mistake all the time in this business and many others, to where they're chasing that yield, and that's what they're looking for first. Their first approach at finding an asset to potentially acquire is based on the return itself. They'll go shopping for cap rate or by price, which is the complete opposite of what you should be doing. You need to be basing it on location first, and look at price second.
Kevin, I think that the past, when you study a purchase opportunity, the past is inconsequential, and the present is somewhat insignificant. You're buying for the future. all you have is the future. That's what you're getting. So a building with a decent rent roll today, yet with leases that are expiring, in a secondary or tertiary location or the frontier. Look out!
Are there all? I don't think there's office buildings in the frontier market.
Look out! Look out! There's downside potential. Whereas in the excellent locations, there's upside potential.
Mm-hmm. So your business model is very unique in that you don't have to duck and weave as fast as others do. You don't have to pay as much attention to the capital markets per se as other investors do that are using leverage. So I was going to ask you the question of what do you see happening in your local marketplace? Now, you guys are in the Chicago area, but you obviously keep your finger on the pulse of trends nationwide, worldwide, right? I mean, that's just part of your business. That's part of being expert in this industry. Even if you only invest local, you're still keeping your finger on the pulse nationwide. What do you see happening in terms of, are we in for another correction sometime in the near future? And as you mentioned, we run in cycles. You've been through a few yourself. Your father, prior to you getting into business, had been through a few cycles. It's an up and down roller coaster. It just is. You never keep going up, 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 up. At some point in time, that momentum has to come back down and reset itself. What do you see out there today? I mean, if you had a crystal ball, what would that crystal ball tell you?
My crystal ball is very, very clear. Right now we're in good times. We had 18 years of good times. Come 2008, we had 6 years of horrendous times, which was in part because of the extended ride of 18 excellent years. Mm-hmm. Now it's been 2 years of good times, but I guarantee bad times are ahead, and I guarantee after that good times are ahead. What makes it interesting, Kevin, is we don't know when, mm-hmm. but it's there, and that's the way it's going to be. Mm-hmm. So our strategy, which has worked out very, very well, is that in the inevitable bad times, and during this Great Recession, we lost occupancy in our buildings each of the 60 months. If you put our occupancy on a chart, it slid down every month. But yet during those hard times, we made some fantastic acquisitions. Mm-hmm. And when this thing is all sorted out, we may be able to look back to the Great Recession and think that these were the greatest years in our company because the opportunities that we jumped on to mm-hmm. purchase properties at record low prices. Mm-hmm. So, the strategy is to play the cycles.
Sure.
That we know there are going to be. So be cautious in the good times, and jump on opportunities in the bad times.
What you've been through enough now. Do you have certain markers that you look for that would identify that a correction or a downtime is on its way?
Kevin, I feel I'm always the last to realize.
Yeah, me too. I've only been through one down cycle, so I can blame that one on ignorance, right?
I don't feel inferior. Just watch out.
Yep.
Look out! It hits you when you're not looking.
Yeah, it sure does. It sure does. Well, Al, I'm going to ask you a difficult question now, okay? I'm going to put you on the spot here for a second. It's a question I like to ask all of our guests that we have on the show, and I think it helps us gain perspective of the path you've taken for the past 38 years of your investing career. And if you could go back in your DeLorean time machine, jump into your time capsule and go back in time, back to year one of your real estate career when you're just getting started, back when you were just getting started with your father, knowing what you knew today, what advice would you give Al back then?
Well, the advice that I would give myself is something that in 1978, when I first started, I never would have believed. And it took me quite a few years to understand and to reconcile. And that would be that in order to get things done, you really have to either do it yourself or supervise it. To turn a task over to others and to think that it's going to get done to your satisfaction without your observation or intervention, wrong, very wrong. And when I first started, I was the youngest guy doing anything. Everybody was my elder, from the plumber to the broker to the prospective tenant to the attorney. Everybody there was older. I was the baby. And of course I didn't know anything because they don't teach you practical real estate in college or from a book. You really just have to get out there. But I always respected my elders, I still do, and I had assumed that whatever task my elders were doing, they were doing it judiciously and completely. And as I opened my eyes, I saw that was just not so. And it was very, very frustrating for me as I would delegate tasks to professionals, and I would find that it just wasn't done well, it wasn't done at all, certainly not to my satisfaction. And it would make me somewhat angry. How can this be? I didn't realize that I had to be a part of everything. So, the advice to the person getting into the business or the youngster is you got to watch the store.
Yep, or else the money will definitely find its way out the door.
That's right.
Well, fantastic. Well, Al, are there any books that have had a major impact on your life that you can attribute some of your success to? Are there any books or industry publications that are just like you wouldn't be able to live without, and you wouldn't be where you are today if you didn't read them?
Kevin, I think that the best reading is the books that have to do with negotiation. There's these various negotiation experts that publish books. I went through one about a year ago. I'm scratching my head trying to come up with the name of the author. Oh, I can't think of it. Of course, I loaned out the book and I haven't gotten it back. But any successful entrepreneur has mastered the art of negotiation because everything should be negotiated, and the good negotiators do great. Those who cannot negotiate, I think, get stopped. And I love reading the negotiation books.
Okay. Yeah, no, it's part of sales, and if you don't have negotiation skills or sales skills, then you're gonna struggle in this particular business, or as an entrepreneur in general. You're gonna struggle if you don't learn those basic skills. So I agree with you on that. It's very, very, very important.
I find the book being a playbook on things that I do without even realizing it, and the mind games others are playing on me.
Yeah, right.
I just think that's excellent reading for any wannabe entrepreneur.
Tom Hopkins was one of my big mentors when I was younger and just getting into the real estate business. He wrote a lot of books back in the 80s primarily, I think, is when he did a lot of his publications. And just the master of sales, I learned a lot from him, and probably wouldn't be where I am today if it wasn't for reading a lot of those books 15, 20 years ago. So it's a big part of this business, and if you're not willing to learn sales or negotiation tactics, then you should probably find another line of work to be in. Wouldn't you agree, Al?
Certainly, and the lessons are timeless.
Absolutely. Well, Al, this has been a lot of fun. It's just been a pleasure having you on the show. I've been looking forward to this day now. As I had mentioned before we started recording here, you'd been on my list of making contact with and having a guest on the show for, I think, probably 8 or 9 months now. And I'm so glad that we finally were able to hook up. You've got a world of knowledge behind you. You've done a lot of incredible things within your business, and you're a big inspiration for all of us listeners that are tuning in out there listening to this show. So I just want to thank you for everything that you've shared with us today. And for those that are listening, if you'd like to learn more about Al and his company, you can go visit him at imperialrealtyco.com. Again, that's imperialrealtyco.com. And Al, that's all we have for today. Again, appreciate you joining us on the call, and you have a wonderful day, my friend.
Kevin, it's been an absolute pleasure.
Congratulations! Now you've got more of the best tricks of the trade in building massive amounts of passive income from real estate. For more amazing resources, visit realestateinvestingforcashflow.com, and we'll see you next Monday morning.